super quick update. I did make a third pass through this PCB. And as far as this 4 output regulator, I have compressed the space that it's taking. So you can see that really I'm down to the point now that I have this power connector that I'm using, which is a rather large power connector, along with the regulator and all of its supporting components in this corner of this board. And so this is a 100 by 100 millimeter board, so roughly 50 by 50 or less is what this is taking for this. Bring power in, get it through the regulator, get all 4 outputs, the 2.5, 3.3, 1.2, and 5.0 all outputting. So I think this is about as tight as I'm comfortable making it. And I think this should be okay. So I've got all the appropriate copper pads or copper areas underneath separating all of this. And no other signals are coming through here whatsoever. And the only thing that you see me running around it is I'm pulling the 5 volt out and running that just with a heavy trace to a 5 volt pin here, a 5 volt for the LED indicating 5 volt, and then just some pins on these headers, these connectors here to supply 5 volt to any add-in boards that I might have. And I don't know if I'll even have any of that need for a 5 volt on those, but I'm sending it out just in case. If I real quick jump over to this view here, I can run through the layers again, but basically top side, and I will turn on seeing the copper. So you can kind of see what I've got for copper going on the top side. And so really I've got pretty much all grounding that you're going to see filled in all over the place here. So ground everywhere. I do have, if I go back to all, I do have these vias in place to really connect this little ground area to the inner ground plane that I have. And really just seeing all of that get connected together here it's looking pretty decent, I think. And that's what I've got as much ground all over the place. And I suppose I probably could do the same thing here, but I'm not going to worry about that right now. So I've got the top layer filled in with ground everywhere. If I do take a look at these different copper pads, I've got a pad here for sky, and I have a ground there on both sides of this, and then I have a VN, and that VN I actually have there and down here, but then in my inner layer I have a power, and underneath, let me go back and make that visible and take the top layer out. But what you'll see is that underneath this I have a VN, and VN is coming from this power connector. So that power connector has a nice clean connection into this inner copper area, and then that's getting that to the 2 places I need VN on this. So the VN I think is being connected nicely. And let me get back up to my top layer. And so if I get out of that, I've got this all the VN getting its connection over to the pins on the Saber connector quite nicely. I got one here for the 3.3. I've got the 2.5. And down here I've got the 1.2, and I've got the 5.0. And I'm sure I could compress this a little bit more, but this seems pretty good. I'm getting a nice little copper fill or copper area around every connection here. And I don't think that I see any major issues with this. Going back to my power layer for a second, as I look at that, I do have all of this that you see in the lighter color as I selected it is filled with 3.3. I am pulling from the 1.2, so I'm overlapping that 1.2, and I have a couple of things. I've got 4 vias and then 2 basically through hole pins that are getting that connected, so I can get all of that routed over here, or get all that 1.2 volt to my FPGA. And then as far as the 3.3 volt, that's going to come through up here, and I've got that really covering everything else minus this here, which was the voltage in or VIN. As far as 5 volts, I really am not super worried about 5 volt or 2.5 volts, but I do have them. So if I go up to the top layer and look at that, you'll see that I have this 5 volt, and maybe I'll bring in the bottom layer too. But I'm bringing in this 5 volt coming from up here, and let me just turn everything on. And probably can't see it. Oh, there it is. So here you're seeing I'm just bringing the 5 volt over and running that around the board to the 2 different connections. And that's a pretty, I think, pretty thick trace. So I've got an outside, or basically what do I got? A 1 millimeter here. And then you saw that the via was a 1 millimeter with an inner of 0.6. So that should be plenty sufficient for any 5 volt stuff that I might try to run with this. And if for some reason I do need more power than that, then I can connect maybe a jumper wire to this header or something like that if I needed to. But that trace should handle plenty of current that I would need. I still have a ground fill layer that is this entire inner plane. And then my bottom layer is all 1.2 volt. And then my top layer was all ground. Putting that all together, I'm going to go ahead and get something that looked like this over here. I think I've got pretty good separation. All of this is ground fill, so that is pretty much keeping that away. And I think I'm getting a pretty clean way to get it over to the FPGA and everything else. So I think third pass is the cleanest. And this is probably pretty close to orderable for me, but I'll be curious on any additional feedback any of you would have. And again, thanks for all the feedback on this, and catching a couple things in the data sheets that I was missing, but updates here I think are looking pretty good.